In the vast expanse of eastern Ukraine, some names are etched into the war's narrative not just with blood, but with the cold logic of military strategy. Lyman is one such name. Once a quiet railway town, today it is a symbol of resilience and a linchpin in the brutal conflict for the Donbass. Its story is a microcosm of the wider war, a tale of invasion, liberation, and the relentless struggle for control over the arteries that keep an army alive. Located in the contested Donetsk Oblast, Lyman is known as a fortress city. This isn't just due to man-made fortifications. Its geography provides natural defenses. The Siversky Donets River forms a barrier to the north, while dense forests offer cover and create choke points for any attacking force. Holding Lyman means holding a fortified gateway to the critical cities of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. But Lyman's primary significance is pure logistics. In modern warfare, battles are won by the efficiency of the supply chain. In the Donbass, the most effective way to move the immense tonnage of war material is by rail. Lyman is the heart of this system. Its sprawling rail yard is a convergence point where multiple lines from central Ukraine intersect before branching out toward the front, making it an asset of incalculable worth. These steel tracks are the arteries for the Ukrainian army's lifeblood. Down these lines come fresh brigades to relieve exhausted soldiers. Heavy equipment, tanks, armored vehicles, and crucial artillery arrives via flatbed rail cars, saving fuel and time. Most critically, the rails carry a ceaseless flow of ammunition, from small arms rounds to the 155mm shells that form the backbone of Ukraine's defense. Without this constant resupply, a front line quickly collapses. Control of the Lyman junction is therefore a decisive factor. For Ukraine, holding it allows for rapid reinforcement of its defenders along the northern Donbas front. For Russia, capturing it would sever this vital supply line and open a direct rail route for their own forces to press attacks towards Sloviansk. It would force Ukrainian logistics onto slower, more vulnerable roads, crippling their defensive posture. This was brutally demonstrated in 2022. Russian forces seized the city in May, using its rail hub for their summer offensive. But in a stunning autumn counterattack, Ukrainian troops encircled the Russian garrison. By October 1st, facing total defeat, they were forced into a chaotic withdrawal, leaving behind equipment and a city in ruins. The liberation was a major victory, both strategic and symbolic. Today the city bears deep scars. Buildings are shattered, but Lyman remains firmly in Ukrainian hands, a battered but unbroken fortress. Engineers have worked to repair the critical rail links, and the flow of supplies has resumed. As Russia continues its relentless assaults, Lyman's role as a logistical anchor and defensive bastion is more critical than ever. The fate of this railway city remains inextricably tied to the fate of the Donbass. For the Russian High Command, the city of Lyman was more than just a point on the map. It was a critical logistical hub and a gateway to further advances into the Donbass. To seize it, they formulated a plan that was a brutal yet familiar page from the old Soviet playbook. Overwhelming mass and unstoppable momentum. This wasn't about finesse, it was about applying so much force that the Ukrainian defenses would simply shatter under the weight of the assault. Commanders began gathering a colossal force, pulling in units from multiple sectors to create a fist powerful enough to deliver a single, decisive blow. Entire motorized rifle regiments, tank battalions, and airborne support elements were marshaled, representing tens of thousands of troops. The logistical effort alone was immense, a vast undertaking to supply this temporary army with the fuel, ammunition, and food required for a sustained, high-intensity offensive. The objective was clear: punch through, encircle Lyman, and force a surrender or annihilation. The doctrine of the attack was classic combined arms, heavy artillery, including self-propelled howitzers and Grad multiple-launch rocket systems, would unleash a terrifying barrage. Their job was not merely to suppress, but to obliterate frontline positions, disrupt command and control, and create a fire corridor for the assault force. Through this corridor, spearheads of main battle tanks would charge, their armor and firepower tasked with breaking the main defensive lines. Following immediately behind, mechanized infantry in their fighting vehicles would pour through the breach, dismounting to clear trenches and urban areas, securing the ground won by the tanks and repelling any counterattacks. But between the assembled Russian war machine and its objective lay a formidable natural barrier. The entire complex operation hinged on successfully crossing the Zherebets River. This waterway, with its steep banks and marshy approaches, formed a perfect defensive line for the Ukrainians. Russian commanders were painfully aware of the dangers. Previous catastrophic failures at river crossings, like the infamous attempt over the Siversky Donets, had resulted in the annihilation of entire battalion tactical groups, a lesson written in burnt steel and blood. The solution was a high-stakes engineering gamble. Combat engineers were tasked with constructing temporary pontoon bridges under the noses of the enemy. These fast, floating spans were essential for getting heavy armor and waves of troops across the river. But they were also incredibly vulnerable. The construction process is slow, loud, and exposes the engineers to direct and indirect fire. A single well-aimed artillery shell or drone-dropped munition could cripple a bridge section, halting the entire offensive before it even began. The plan called for a meticulously timed sequence. Once the bridges were in place, the first waves of armor and infantry would rush across in a desperate sprint to establish a bridgehead, a secure foothold on the Ukrainian side. The initial units to cross would be the most exposed, fighting to expand this small pocket of controlled territory, pushing the defenders back from the riverbank to create enough space for the main body of the assault force to assemble for its push toward Lyman. Simultaneously, another quieter war would be waged in the shadows. Small, elite infiltration groups, likely Spetsnaz or VDV reconnaissance, would slip across the river or through gaps in the line. Their mission: to get behind Ukrainian defenses and sow chaos. This meant ambushing supply convoys, cutting communication lines, and creating diversions to draw attention away from the main crossing points, adding a layer of uncertainty and panic to the Ukrainian response. But this entire intricate and ambitious plan, from the massing of armor to the covert infiltration, was balanced on a knife's edge. It depended on one critical and perhaps unattainable element: surprise. And achieving surprise is nearly impossible under Ukraine's ever-present eyes in the sky. The constant watch of tactical drones meant that any large-scale troop movement, any convoy of engineering equipment heading for the river, was likely to be spotted, reported, and targeted long before the first pontoon section ever touched the water. Ukraine didn't wait. It moved first with a modern, layered defense. Drones, airstrikes, and artillery were synchronized. Eyes in the sky found massing troops and bridge construction. Intelligence flowed instantly to shooters. Jets delivered precision strikes at standoff range. FPV drones hunted armor one vehicle at a time. Artillery shelled staging areas and routes, then scooted before counter-battery. The assault collapsed before a single Russian soldier reached Lyman's bank. The Jerebets River became both fortress wall and trap. For the advancing Russian forces, its muddy banks were a formidable natural barrier. Crossing a river under enemy fire is one of warfare's most perilous maneuvers, a moment of profound vulnerability where an entire assault can be destroyed. Rivers shape battles, and in Ukraine, their impact is amplified. On the country's vast open plains, they are the primary defensive ramparts. They dictate the front lines, forcing any aggressor into predictable channels and turning the war into a series of brutal contests for control of these critical choke points. Permanent crossings were destroyed, turning approaches into kill zones. This was a calculated act of denial by Ukrainian defenders, designed to funnel the Russian advance into pre-sighted fields of fire. Any approach to the riverbank now became a gauntlet, watched by waiting drone operators. That forced reliance on vulnerable pontoon bridges. These floating temporary spans are an army's lifeline, but also its Achilles heel. Slow to assemble and conspicuous from the air, they are incredibly fragile, representing a single point of failure for an entire operation, and a magnet for enemy fire. Building under constant threat, day and night. For Russian combat engineers, it was a desperate race against time. Under the unblinking eye of Ukrainian drones, they worked frantically to lay the spans. Knowing every section was a gamble against an imminent artillery barrage, Ukraine struck every time a span appeared, destroying at least 5 bridges. This wasn't a lucky shot, it was a systematic hunt. Guided by real-time drone feeds, Ukrainian artillery would wait for a bridge to near completion, then unleash a precise barrage, creating a relentless cycle of destruction. With crossings gone, Russia's mass sat exposed in staging areas. The concentration of armor meant to punch through enemy lines now became their greatest liability. Stuck on the eastern bank, columns of tanks and trucks were trapped, a perfect, concentrated target with no easy way to disperse. The Jerebets became a watery grave for the assault's ambitions. Those staging areas turned into kill boxes, where concentrated Russian units were systematically dismantled by accurate fire. The river was now littered with smoking wreckage, a monument to a failed offensive and a lesson in turning geography into a weapon. Key to Ukraine's success: GBU-39 small-diameter bombs. They are compact, GPS-guided, and extremely precise. Ukraine can fire them from F-16s and adapted MiG-29s. A double-tap tactic, 2 bombs per bridge, ensured the crossings were unusable. FPV drones, cheap, fast, and lethal, closed the distance. Operators scored multiple hits, including on a T-90M near Terney. Each destroyed tank removed a spear point from the planned assault. Low-cost precision neutralized high-value assets across the river line. Once Russia's intentions were confirmed, Ukraine struck first. Strikes hit bridges, tanks, and artillery at the same time. Jets slammed the crossings while drone teams hunted armor. Artillery pieces were found and destroyed despite concealment. Russia was still organizing, vulnerable and exposed. A T-90M was confirmed destroyed outside Terney, a material and symbolic blow. With bridges cut and guns silenced, the plan unraveled. The offensive wasn't defeated in battle, it was dismantled before one could begin. A turning point was the arrival of the 52nd Separate Artillery Brigade. Created to bolster Lyman's defense, it brought sustained firepower. Equipped with Bodana systems, the brigade shoots, then scoots before counter-battery. Coverage now spans river approaches, road nodes, and staging areas. Detection routes directly to guns within minutes. Rapid response prevents force accumulation. Every attempt to mass becomes an immediate target. Lyman has evolved from defended city to near impenetrable fortress. Russia's assault failed before it began. Bridges destroyed, tanks eliminated, artillery taken out of action. Despite heavy Russian losses, the line did not move an inch. Drones, air power, and artillery now form a formidable shield. Massed assaults are thwarted by modern multi-layered defense. Constant surveillance turns concentrations into targets. Options to take Lyman have narrowed to almost none. Lyman showcases proactive, tech-driven, highly coordinated defense. See in real time, strike precisely, act preemptively. Traditional mass meets a transparent battlefield and loses. Rivers will keep shaping the fight. Bridging and counter-bridging decide momentum. Decentralized teams, empowered to act quickly, are proving decisive. Success lifts morale and becomes a blueprint for future defenses. With the right strategy and technology, Ukraine has made this fortress city stand, and made the next assault even harder.